Hello, everybody. So I just wanted to go over two more processes that occur at the cellular level where things are taken into the cell and things are pushed out of the cell. And we've talked about this many times, but not necessarily used this terminology. So the first is endocytosis, the second is exocytosis. Endo means going in, and exo means going out or exiting. Okay. So this is when stuff goes into a cell, and this is when stuff goes out of a cell. Both of these processes actually require ATP. So they are considered an active transport mechanism. Okay. So again, active transport means that it requires energy. And remember, cellular energy is in the form of ATP. So again, this one also requires ATP. The direction for this, for endocytosis, is going into the cell. Exocytosis is going out of the cell. Is a protein needed for either of these? No. Okay, so that's kind of nice. But it does fuse with the plasma membrane. Okay, so that means that stuff that comes into the cell has to fuse with the plasma membrane to get into the cell. So it ends up encapsulating whatever's coming in. So some examples of molecules that are transported in this particular case of endocytosis is nutrients. Okay, so nutrients that get transported in, and also eliminating pathogens. So things like the viruses, like coronavirus, bacteria, and your white blood cells are notorious for doing this, for actually going through endocytosis, encapsulating a pathogen with the cell membrane, and then, dissolving it and killing it off, okay, within. And it would have to probably, right, use the lysosomes that are full of enzymes to then digest it, right? Okay, so what does that look like? Essentially, if you have a cell here, so let's say this is the cell, and let's say this is the pathogen, that pathogen comes into the cell and has to go through the membrane, which is this purple line. And when it gets in, you then have the pathogen that's surrounded with a membrane, okay? That phospholipid bilayer, right? And so it's like an encapsulated pathogen that's within there. And then that will actually get, killed off, okay? The other process, exocytosis, again, requires ATP. This is exiting the cell. There's no protein needed. And again, the molecules that are transported out are waste. So waste will go out of the cell. Okay. Another thing, too, is secretion. There is a secretion of proteins that comes out of certain cells, specifically proteins like enzymes will be secreted wherever they're needed, especially in the digestive system. Also, the secretion of other proteins like hormones, okay, because hormones are proteins. So proteins are secreted, right? And they're secreted through the cell membrane, and it goes out of the cell to wherever it's needed, okay? So I think that we had talked about the energy pathway, we talked about the protein pathway, and at the end of those, and even at the end of the waste disposal pathway from the last unit, it all has to possibly, some of it leaves the cell, right, and goes to where needed. That was like the end of the pathway lesson. And so when it leaves the cell and goes to where needed, that's technically called exocytosis. Okay? All right, and that's it for this little endo and exo lesson.